Good afternoon. I am Rachel Humphrey with It's Personal Stories, a hospitality podcast, and I am so excited for today's episode of the program. I am joined by Myra Biblowit, the board director for Wyndham Hotels and Resorts. Myra, welcome to the podcast.
I'm thrilled to be here.
Well, as you know, I am very excited for today, both because I have really enjoyed getting to know you better over the last couple months, but I'm also really excited to share you with the broader hospitality community. As people will hear, your career really isn't in hospitality. Your avenue through hospitality is as a board director for Wyndham Hotels and Resorts, and then its predecessors before that. So let's jump right in and spend a little bit of time. Tell us about who you are, your career journey. I know we're going to delve into a lot of your leadership insights, but talk a little bit about what your career path has looked like.
Well, I'm a longtime nonprofit executive and most recently retired after almost 23 years as president of the Breast Cancer Research Foundation, which today stands as the largest private funder of breast cancer research worldwide. I joined Evelyn Lauder to found the organization and build it into the powerhouse that it is, and it has had a dramatic impact on survival for our mothers, our daughters, our sisters, and our friends. So I take great pride in having done that. But as a nonprofit executive, I'm really a mission-driven person, and that's what feeds my soul and drives my energy. But I also love being on the board of Wyndham Hotels and Resorts because it has remarkable leadership that is built a culture that fosters bringing women into the C-suite, that fosters engagement with our customers. And there is a consonance between hospitality and nonprofit and the work that I did. So I am thrilled to wear the two hats that go comfortably together.
Well, I am grateful for the work that you have done for breast cancer research, and we're going to dig into a lot more of some of the lessons you've learned through that experience, but also how they impact your hospitality experience. I want to jump right in to how we met. So about a year ago, you and I were both speaking at Wyndham's Women Own the Room event out in Las Vegas. We had not met before that. Right. And you and I both got to the room hours and hours and hours early, and we were both doing the same type of checking out the stage, making sure the computer worked, doing all of these other things. And I told you, I was really blown away because people who speak often, whether it be to a board, a management team, or conferences of thousands of people, sometimes people don't think that we prepare as much or as frequently or as intently. And here was this person who I'm sure you could walk right up on that stage anytime you wanted to and say anything. But you were involved in every single aspect, microphone level to the computer, to the font, to everything else. Talk a little bit about public speaking, your journey there, why it's so important for you, and that idea of those attention to details before you took the stage.
You know, it's who I am. I always want to deliver an A-plus product. I work long and hard. You said to me the other day, do you have a board of directors who have kind of that are your touchstone? And the answer is I have picked role models along the way. And that is how I've really learned my game. Leonard Lauder and Evelyn Lauder are my heart and soul. They are both gone now. We just lost Leonard. But Leonard built the Estee Lauder company into the powerhouse that it is today. He took it over from Estee when it was worth $800,000. And today it's a multiplicity of brands. But his brilliance in building it, his ability to have build collaboration and be authentic was really a key to a culture within that enabled the company to grow. Evelyn, on the other hand, Holocaust survivor with a deep soul, had breast cancer, came to me one day and said, we were longtime friends, I want to start a foundation. I've looked around the country. There is not one entity with a laser sharp focus on funding research, and research is advancing at a pace that has never been more rapid. Will you help me? And I had just started a new job as a vice dean at NYU Medical Center. And I said, gee whiz, Evelyn, I don't know if I can do it right now. But she was very Talmudic. And she said, well, because I can do it, if I don't do it, it would be a sin. You have to join me. So I would say that I learned to prepare and deliver an A-plus product from watching the two of them. They did everything in the most elegant and appropriate and authentic way. These were people who could have sat in Aspen and eaten bonbons, but what drove their soul and moved them was doing good and making a difference. And so I learned. I would go get up to speak, and Evelyn would mouth, bite the mic, bite the mic. And Leonard would give me feedback. And so over time, it became my mantra to only deliver A and to communicate to my staff. We don't skid along. We deliver A because we are a reflection of the Lauders. So it became part of who I was. And I love public speaking, but you saw me checking the mic, checking the sound, I came in today with my halo because I didn't like the light yesterday when I set this up. The attention to detail makes a difference. The recipient on the other side of any conversation feels it, sees it, appreciates it. So to me, it's just second nature to do it well and to deliver.
Well, I love so many pieces of that. First of all, delivering the A or the A plus product and how you learned, and we're going to talk a little bit more about Evelyn and Leonard in a second, but also that they were offering you feedback as you would take the stage and you were willing to take that feedback and begin incorporating it, seeing that your lighting wasn't good and coming up with a solution to that, but also thinking about it from how the audience will receive the information, because in all of your roles, at the end of the day, the messaging is what you're trying to get across. And so the easier you make it for your audience to be in a position to receive it, the better. I really love that.
That's right. I'll tell you a great Leonard Lauder story. We were working on changing our logo. You know, the pink ribbon is the symbol of breast cancer. And I had a new PR person who decided she'd leave her mark by developing a new logo. So she came up with all sorts of ideas, and I brought Leonard in, and he would say, well, ombre it a bit, change it a bit. And then one morning he called me and said, you have to come over to my office right away. So I ran up Madison Avenue to Leonard's office, and he said, look in that closet. Tell me what you see. I said, it's a big mess, and if you brought me here to clean the closet, I'm not doing it. And he said, no, there's a paper bag in there. Let me have that paper bag. And he took the paper bag, and out of it came iconic brands, Kellogg's, and other products that have had decades of imprint on the public's consciousness. And he said, we're not changing our logo. Our currency is the pink ribbon. And then I got branding 101 from the master. Yeah. So, you know, those are the kinds of things that benefited me so tremendously in my career, was to see how smart and insightful he was, to understand how he built the company. And similarly, Evelyn, with her just innate warmth. People used to say you could call Evelyn to say your housekeeper had breast cancer, and she would talk to the housekeeper for as long as she would talk to a wealthy patron. So success in life is built on relationships, and I learned from them to be exquisitely attentive to making sure those relationships delivered.
I love that. And I love hearing you talk so much about them. When we were talking a couple weeks ago, you said to me that early in your career, you learned that you would rather be a big fish in a little pond than a little fish in a big pond. And it impacted your career as far as roles you were in then, seeking out new roles, and what you thought at the time until this opportunity with the Lauders came about where you were going to go. I'm curious because that's an incredible self-awareness for a young person in a very busy city, in a busy community. Talk a little bit about that self-awareness of why Myra says, I want to be a big fish.
Well, I remember I was at Mount Sinai Medical Center when I was director of development, and I got in an elevator, and some buddy in a white coat, a doctor, said, "So, dear, who do you work for?" And I thought, I don't like that. I have a major role here at the medical center. In fact, I'm raising the money that enables you, the doctor, to do your work. And I thought to myself, I want to be somewhere where I am recognized for my leadership, that I'm recognized for the changes that I am bringing about and able to bring about, for the vision that I have. And then I got pregnant and I thought, okay, my life is completely out of control. I'm working full time. I'm going to have a baby. I need to be a big fish in a little pond. So instead of returning to Mount Sinai, I went and became executive vice president of the Central Park Conservancy, which is a major New York charity responsible for the restoration of Central Park. And from there, to the Museum of Natural History, to NYU Medical Center. It just became a path that I was on to have a leadership role in some of New York City's great institutions.
Well, I find it so inspiring that you not only knew that about yourself, but you actually put it into action. You put a vision into mission and saying, you know what, I know this about myself, and how do I make sure that the options that I'm choosing going forward really align with that? And I love that.
Yeah, I saw an opportunity with the Central Park Conservancy to make a mark.
Yeah.
That I knew the importance of Central Park. I mean, you're in Atlanta, but Central Park we call the lungs of the city, and I knew there was an opportunity to restore it to its former glory, and to build a board of prominent New Yorkers who would be devoted to the upkeep of this municipal treasure. So it was very enticing. Rather than going back to Mount Sinai and being the little girl in the elevator, I decided to make that move. And that launched me to future opportunities.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
I could have an entire book based on snippets that Myra has said to me in the year we've been getting to know each other, because this was another one that I'm going to be honest, I was really envious of. I asked you about imposter syndrome. Do you ever about having a seat at the table? The nonprofit universe, of course, can have a lot of female leadership, so different from some other industries. And you said to me, I have too big an ego to be intimidated by anybody else in the room. And I thought, my goodness, Myra, that is incredible. Talk a little bit about that philosophy. Where do you get that confidence to know that you belong in every room that you walk into?
It's probably a credit to my parents. I was an only child, and they imbued me with a sense of self-confidence that I could do anything and be anything. And I just assumed it was thus. And that's a very powerful thing, and it's a lesson in parenting. To give a child that sense that their capacity is boundless, and that they're not easily intimidated.
Well, one of the things that I love in that it came from your parents is this opportunity for generational role models or generational impact, because now your children and your grandchildren get to feel that, experience that from you. And now your granddaughter can see that same type of confidence when they walk into a room. So I think that's a really incredible story.
Yeah. I will tell you, my granddaughter talks about it all the time, my grandma and the Breast Cancer Research Foundation. And she takes great pride in being able to hold me up as a role model. And how great is that?
That is incredible. I strive, get that with my girls. I strive for that someday with granddaughters as well. We've talked a little bit about Evelyn and Leonard's impact on you as a person, on you as a leader, the A+ product, the strategic thinking, other types of things. And when you spend any time with you, it's really beautiful, the impact that these two people have had on you. Talk about some of the other ways that you think that they have guided your leadership. As you said, you were at Breast Cancer Research Foundation almost 25 years. You serve on this role for Wyndham's board. What are some of the other lessons that you've learned that you attribute to their style of leadership?
Building a culture that's collaborative. I read an interview with Danny Myra the other day, and he talked about HQ versus IQ being important when he hires, hospitality quotient. And it's empathy, it's intellectual curiosity, it's collaboration, less so the degrees that are on a resume. And I think that's increasingly an important message for leaders. Someone said to me once, you hire like you're hiring a fourth for bridge. But it's very important to have a culture that is consistent across the organization, where people are accessible, where no one hesitates to express their opinion, to disagree, but to do it in a way that is toward the strategy of building the company, the business, the nonprofit, the organization. And I would say Wyndham under Jeff Bellotti, who is a brilliant leader. I love being on that board because of his commitment to the culture as much as the business.
You have said that one of the reasons you really admire Jeff, who's been a guest on the program as well, is this combination of heart and head, leadership combining heart and head. Tell us more about that successful combination, whether it's about Jeff or just in general, that leaders who combine heart and head will tend to be the most successful of leaders.
I recently brought Wyndham a project that I was working on, because I always have to have another thing in my life to be hideously busy. And I was honored at an event along with a gentleman who was the founder of something called Honor Flight New England. And every year he would raise a little bit of money, and he would bring veterans from World War II, the Korean War, and the Vietnam War to Washington to see their monuments. And he would buy a few tickets on the plane. And my father received a Bronze Star, and he served valiantly in World War II. And so I said, Joe, how do you do this? And could I help you? And what if I could get you a plane? And what if I could get you financial support? Would that be helpful? And so now for the fourth year in a row, we will have our Honor Flight New England on a plane donated by Delta Airlines, a commercial plane brought in as a charter for the day, and we will have financial support from Wyndham. It took Jeff a nanosecond to say, I'm in. But not only was he in, he came. He showed up at 6 o'clock in the morning in the police barracks at Logan Airport. And he spent the day with me with 75 veterans, going to Washington, greeting them. That is emblematic of the soul as well as the acumen. It wasn't just let us write a check, Myra. It was let me be part of it, and let me bring to my employees and my customers a reflection of Wyndham's commitment to the military and the veterans. And of course, we have a broad program to hire veteran-owned businesses and to make our properties accessible to veterans and their families. Women Own the Room is another reflection of Jeff's commitment. It was the first hotel program dedicated to fueling, encouraging, and emboldening women to be hotel owners, not just open the door, but provide guidance. So his heart and his acumen blend magnificently. And the employees know it and recognize it and celebrate it. And it makes me honored to be on their board. So in September, we will do our fourth honor flight New England, and we're losing our veterans quickly from World War II. But we will go to Washington, and Jeff will be there waving the flag and celebrating Wyndham's commitment.
Well, I think that's also a perfect example of Myra, who gets something in her mind and then puts it into action, gets it done, and reports back out on it. I want to talk about board service a little bit. There's a lot of conversation now, not just in the hospitality industry, but about board service and women on boards. I actually have two questions. You've been on, starting with Cendant and then Wyndham Worldwide, and then Wyndham Hotels and Resorts, the board for about 25 years. Let's start with just a quick one. How did you obtain that very first seat back when it was Cendant to serve on the board?
You know, I speak sometimes at board boot camps and things for women who want to get on corporate boards. And I'm not a very good example of how to do it because it's always about, burnishing your resume and things like that. I was at NYU Medical Center, and I was vice dean and ran development and public relations and alumni relations. And Henry Silverman was then on the board. And he said to me one day, I have to step down. My company is imploding. This is way back, 25 years ago. And I can't manage this. And I said, I'll tell you what, I'll do all the work. You stay put. I'll write your remarks. I'll deliver the dollars. We'll raise a lot of money and I'll make it easy. And he said, you're kidding. I said, you don't have to do a thing. And so he said, okay. And he stayed, and then he built Cendant, and he called me one day and he said, I've loved working with you, and I want to add a woman to my board, and I would love you to join. You've shown me what you can do. So it was the right place at the right time, and I feel like I've been blessed to be in the right place at the right time on so many occasions. But it in part derives from treasuring and nurturing relationships.
I was just about to say, I would disagree when you say you are not the right person to speak as to how to seek a board seat, because in reality, you did it based on building relationships, such a critical part of the industry.
Yeah.
You also showed up for somebody expecting nothing in return. So this idea of selfless leadership or servant leadership and how that impacted your journey. So I'm going to disagree with you on that one. I think it's an incredible example. But I want to pivot to the second part, because you've spent your whole career really in this nonprofit sector. And Wyndham, of course, is a for-profit board role. Talk about the difference between what you have learned as a leader for the nonprofit universe versus the for-profit universe.
I've learned so much being on the several boards that I've been on and watching how decisions get made and how people come together around the table and how the various skill sets at the table impact decision making. And I think it has made me a stronger leader in the nonprofit. I mean, the Breast Cancer Research Foundation is Johnny One Note. It doesn't have a multiplicity of businesses, but it is global as the largest private funder of breast cancer research worldwide. So I think there were just lessons that helped me to become a stronger leader, a better conveyor of message, a better leader of decision making and strategy, and that they came together and they continue to come together. And the fact that there is this flow of philanthropic engagement on the corporate side also has made a difference in the companies, just to watch how the company grew from Cendant when we divided that into its multiplicity of businesses. And I went on the Wyndham Worldwide board, which was timeshare and hotel. And then we broke timeshare into travel and leisure, and I went on the board of Wyndham Hotels and Resorts. The process of decision making, the brilliance around the table, the mutual respect of talents at the table made me a better leader in my nonprofit world. And I'm the great beneficiary of a door that Henry Silverman opened, that Steve Holmes nurtured so brilliantly at Wyndham, and that Jeff continues to build into this enormous global behemoth, the largest franchisor in the world.
Well, it's been incredible to see that Henry's invite all that time ago continues to have such an enormous impact on the hospitality industry. You know, I asked you a couple weeks ago about, especially when you're at one organization for a long time, to not get stale. What is something that you think about how your leadership evolved? Where did it get better over time? I'm not going to ask about confidence, because we know Myra's confident.
Yeah.
We know that's not something, but what would you say is something that you think you got better at as time evolved?
You know, I'm a bit of a science junkie. And so the advances in research I find so exhilarating, and the deliverables so heartwarming. I mean, we are going to cure cancer, and the research is revealing so much about how to prevent, not just cure. You know, when I started out, if a woman was diagnosed, she got on the conveyor belt, and at the end of the conveyor belt, everyone got the same treatment. And at the end of the conveyor belt, some people got better and some didn't. Now we understand the differences in tumors, and we understand the therapies that'll make a difference, and we understand the genetic predisposition. So I found the research advances so exhilarating that it made me a very effective fundraiser, because my own passion for investing in the science was so genuine, and the deliverables so tangible in terms of lives saved. So I never tired of the science.
Yeah, I mean, that continuous learning is such a huge commonality among great leaders, is that desire. Well, I told you we were going to run short on time because I want to know more. I want to keep asking questions, but I'm going to do a couple rapid fire questions with you. If you are hiring for a team around you, and I'm going to limit you just to one thing, what is the number one thing you look for in knowing that that person is going to be the right fit for you?
A collaborative style.
Okay, I love that. Tell me something that would shock people, because you're a very public figure globally, and you are influential. And when Myra talks, everybody is listening. Yeah. You have said you're an open book. Tell me one thing about you that would surprise people to hear.
I have a pink closet.
Do you? Yeah. I'm surprised to hear that.
Not after several decades, I learned it was better to consolidate everything pink in one closet. So,
oh my gosh, I love that. And then one of my very favorite questions on this podcast, because I think that we are all works in progress. We continue to evolve as people, as leaders, but a lot of that involves reflection, looking back some time ago. So as Myra took that first role out of college and started entering your career, what is one thing you would tell your younger self, either about how things turned out for you or something that would have made the path a little bit different for you?
You know, I would say be bold, but I would also say thank you. Often, often, often.
Oh, I love that.
Relationships sustain over a long period of time if you say thank you. And so I would say thank you often. Don't let anyone fall off your Rolodex, an old word, but keep people in your circle and be bold.
I love that.
Be brave and be bold.
Love that. And then our motto is empowering personal success. We've talked a lot about great advice today, but what is one final thought you might have for our audience?
Bring people along with you. Success is not a solo practice. Success is a team sport.
Well, from the collaborative Myra, I would expect you to say nothing less, but such an important thought to bring people along with you, to lift others, to be collaborative and giving in that way. That's really incredible. Myra, I told you from the minute I met you, I'm intrigued. I want to know more. I want to keep learning from you. I want to keep being inspired by you. I want to share you and your story with the rest of the hospitality industry that might not have an opportunity. So what you would tell your younger self, I will say thank you to you often and with heartfelt gratitude. But thank you for your leadership in breast cancer research, in giving to your community, in what you do to support the hospitality industry through your board service, through elevating women and others in the industry, for joining me today and having already a deep impact on me over the short time that we have gotten to know each other. But thank you so much for joining us today. And then I would tell our listeners, I hope you've enjoyed getting a chance to know Myra a little bit. We have the newly launched itspersonalstories.com. We hope you will check it out and hear from other incredible leaders in the hospitality industry. But Myra, thank you so very much. And we really appreciate you joining us.
Thank you very much for having me.
Bye-bye.